Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, this one is going to be quick, and I'm going to file this under my I told you so banner. This is going to be filed under my I told you so banner. Now, I don't like to say I told you so. It makes me feel somewhat petty. It makes me feel small. It makes me feel like I should be a better person than that. It makes me feel like, in regards to this idea of just development as a person, being a better person, being the best human being that I could possibly be, saying I told you so just feels out of sync with that. But I'm still a human being. And ultimately, being a human being, there are going to be times where I don't necessarily live up to the better angels of my nature. In this particular case, I am not going to live up to the better angels of my nature. I am not going to be a superior human being. I am going to dwell into this thing of, I told you so. I said this from the beginning. I stood by the comment that I made in this particular case, which I'm going to explain. But I told you so. This is today. Let's see. James J. Zogby. At the Democratic Rules Committee, as they debate the Unity Reform Commission report, they keep calling it the Unity Committee, ignoring the need for reform. Some want to reopen and undo the compromises we reached. This will be a mistake because without reform, unity will be at risk. James, unity would not be at risk. They understand that unity would not be at risk, which is why they're taking out reform, and which is why they want to open up and undo the quote-unquote compromises. And just understand, you might call them compromises, and you may say there was a deal that you reached, but ultimately the fact that you guys are having a conversation now, talking about voting on it and moving it through the process means that no deal was reached. Have you heard the statement that no deal is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon? Meaning we don't have a deal until we have a deal. Until that's voted on, you don't have anything. And just to put a final point on it, Tom Perez himself, if he honestly believed in those things, can implement the reforms that you yourself came up with. Unity Reform Commission. Now, your question may be, wait a minute, who's James Zogby? I'm glad you asked that question about who's James Zogby. Let's go back to this one. DNC chair purges dissenters in surprise shakeup. James Zogby was one of those people who was purged. This is vanity. The Republican Party isn't the only political establishment in shambles following the shock election of Donald Trump last fall. In a move that exacerbated the vast intra-party rift exposed during the last presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez has stripped a number of longtime party officials of their at-large delegate status or leadership positions, while appointing a slate of 75 new members that include campaign veterans, lobbyists, and neophytes. Perez revealed his picks this week ahead of the DNC's first meeting since he was elected chairman. Upon perusing it, Progressive Party members were incensed to find that he had demoted a number of veteran delegates who backed either Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison in his bid for party chairman against Perez or Sanders in 2016. Ellison, who now serves as Perez's deputy or sheepdog, deputy sheepdog, was widely viewed as a proxy candidate for the more liberal Sanders wing of the party. Those ousted include Ray Buckley, James Zogby, Alice Gurman, and Barbara Kaspar-Sipperstein, NBC News reports. I'm concerned about the optics, and I'm concerned about the impact, Zogby said of the DNC shakeup. I want to heal the wound of 2016. The gentleman who wants to heal the wound of 2016 is James Zogby. The exact same James Zogby who wrote the aforementioned tweet that I just displayed. This guy. And I repeat it just in case somebody comes a little bit late. At the DNC Rules Committee, as they debate the Unity Reform Commission report, they keep calling it the Unity Committee, ignoring the need for reform. Some want to reopen and undo the compromises we reached. This will be a mistake because without reform, unity will be at risk. And that's James Zogby, the same James Zogby that was slapped and purged. Think about that, right? The guy who was purged is now saying, you know what? I think unity would be at risk if we don't actually have the reform. Now, my argument, the argument that I made time and time again, and I've invited Nomiki to come onto the show to give her point of view, to explain why she believes that the Reform Commission would do what she believes it's going to do. I'll be fair. I'm not going to browbeat. You've heard my interviews. I've never browbeat anybody in my interview. I've let the person talk. And I guess my point to this is, I made one very particular argument. That the bear at the door, the doombringer, the person who's standing outside of the door that's compelling these guys to behave in a particular way of wanting reform, is the fact that they could lose. The moment that the DNC and the Democrats realize that they may take the House and they may take the Senate, all impetus for reform goes out the window. You have no impetus. You have nothing. You have no stick. You have no leverage. You have no brick to hit them with at that point. They believe they're going to win the House. They believe they're going to win the Senate. The tension that you are using in order to get them to compel them to vote for you has evaporated. So you can understand without any tension, without a stick, without a brick, without any leverage, why would they, in their right mind, make changes that they never wanted to make in the first place? Why? Why? Let's go back to Zogby. At the DNC Rules Committee, as they debate the Unity Reform Report, they keep calling it Unity Committee. I wonder why. Because they never cared about the reform. The reform was something you cared about. It wasn't something they cared about. They reformed, or they went with this dog and pony show of reform, because at the end of the day, they lost 1,100 seats. They lost the House, the Senate, Supreme Court, and they lost the president to reality shows. All of that created a tension. It created a crisis within the party itself. That crisis was the thing that was being exploited in order to get the Unity Reform Commission. You didn't understand your strengths. You didn't understand your strengths. Your capacity to win boils down to making them, or being able, willing to let them lose. You didn't understand that. You wanted to reform the DNC. You wanted to continuously, regardless of what the DNC did, continuously push for the DNC. And at the end of the day, the DNC knows that you will always be their loyal sheepdog. You'd always come back to them. You're the abused spouse, the abused widow, the person who gets slapped in the face over and over and over and over again. And yet and still, he has a good heart. I just walked into a door. I accidentally fell down the steps. I'm immaculately clumsy. No, he's a good man. I don't want to call the cops on him. Yes, he slept with the maid. No, he doesn't wash his hands. Yes, when I was asleep, he farted in my face and he thought it was absolutely funny. Yes, he's a horrible person, but he has a heart of gold. He has a heart of gold. That's you, James Zogby. That's you, Nomiki. That's you, all of those Democrats who are trying to change the DNC without having any leverage whatsoever to do so. This weak, lame threat at the very end is comical and ridiculous. This will be a mistake because without reform, unity will be at risk. I've asked a question to the reformers. At which point, is there any point in which Nina Turner, Nomiki, any of these people who are like the pro-reformers, like the main state reformers, the people who are like strong in this camp, we're going to change the DNC, we're boarding the ship, TYT. At which point are you willing to say, I'm done? And if there's no point that you're willing to say I'm done, then what's the point of the Reform Commission? Shut this shit down now. The Democrats can tell you to go fuck off. Why would they need to have a Reform Commission? They're most likely going to win the House. They may win the Senate. And at the end of the day, your leverage goes to zero. Why are we here? Why are we here? Nothing needs to be done. There's no risk of you leaving. You're always going to vote for him. You're the loyal, you're the loyal dog, or you're the loyal spouse that, regardless of what the husband does, always comes back. There's a weak threat, particularly when there's nothing behind it. They demoted you. Put it in context. Bernie Sanders was cheated. Outright cheated. Flagrantly cheated. He still supported the party. Tom Perez won the DNC thing. Now, some people say he was undercut, but at the end of the day, they broke their own rules in order to install Tom Perez in that position. You still supported him. You were purged. Tom Perez went through a purge of the people who supported Keith Ellison and Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry, yeah, Ellison or Sanders. And you still supported them. At which point? It's a fair question. At which point? What does he have to do for you to leave? If he sleeps with your sister, do you call it a day? If you see him fucking the dog, do you call it a day? I suspect even if you saw him having sex with the dog, you'd still be there. I don't know what that corresponds to in real life. I'm just making the point that it doesn't really matter what the Democratic Party does. You're still there, which means it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter. They don't need a Reform Commission. They don't need it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, any threat that you put forth is just a weak threat. If they believe they're going to win the House and the Senate, as I said months ago, the moment that they believe they're going to win the House and the Senate, your bargaining, your leverage goes to nil. The only reason they're talking about opening that Reform Commission and changing those things and undoing some of those things is because you have no leverage. I don't like to say I told you so. I don't like to. I feel like I should be a better person than that. But I'm not. I told you so. I exactly said this was going to take place. I said this was going to take place months ago. I said that your leverage was going to go to zero. I said this. Check my old videos. I said the exact same thing that was going to happen. This is politics. Without leverage, you have nothing. If you want to reform the Democratic Party, the best way to reform the Democratic Party is to create a third party. Nothing changes without leverage in this process. FDR, you can make a case that FDR did what FDR did because FDR had people that was chomping at his heels, that FDR thought he was going to lose the entire kit and caboodle if he didn't make reforms to the capitalistic system. What's your leverage? What's your leverage? You have nothing. You have nothing. That Rules Committee may vote on those things. It might. But I am fantastically curious about what leverage you believe that you have, particularly if these guys are looking at the polling, and the polling is saying they're going to win the House and the Senate. Them losing 1,100 seats was your leverage. Well, they may still have lost those 1,100 seats, but at the very least, they may be taking the House and the Senate, which is going to give them this impression that we don't have to change. Status quo forever. Status quo forever. We don't have to change squat. And you understand this as a secondary consequence. Bernie Sanders running in that election now is somewhat of a tenuous thing. Meaning, if you can't get the situation where those superdelegates, the cheating is only 60% less cheating. If you can't get the 60% less cheating, if you can't get open primaries, if you can't get those things, if you can't get those rule changes, what practical chance does Sanders have when those superdelegate votes are just going to be given to the next corporate shill, and Sanders is going to have to win just the ridiculous amount of votes in order to overcome the cheat factor in the contest itself? What chance does Sanders have if they're still purging people in all these different states, meaning the same way they threw 200,000 people off the rolls in Brooklyn illegally, by the way, state and Senate illegally? What chance? They're shutting down polling locations in the same way they were doing before. What chance? I mean, yes, of course he has a chance in this. I'm making the point that if they continuously instantiate cheating into this process, and you can't even get to the point of 60% less cheating, what chance? I told you so. I told you so. And just put a finer point on it, I want to leave this reading Zogby. Read Zogby like we're reading fine literature. At the DNC Rules Committee, as they debate the Unity Reform Commission report, they keep calling it Unity Committee, ignoring the need for reform. The thing is, James, you believe they need to reform. That's you. Those people are okay with status quo. Those people don't believe they need to change. When that woman was arguing for the awesomeness of superdelegates, that the public itself didn't know what the fuck the public wanted to do, or didn't know what the public was talking about, that the public could be swayed by people who shouldn't be in that office, that ultimately what the public needs is the Democratic Party to make the choice on their behalf. When she's arguing that, and she believes it from flesh to bone, you honestly believe that woman thinks that things should change? They don't. This is not about being a good person. This is not about doing what's right. This has nothing to do with any of that. This is politics. This is about leverage. You've just lost yours. You've just lost it. They keep calling it the Unity Committee, yeah, because they just want you united. Shut the fuck up and vote for us. Same policy as the last 20 years. Shut the fuck up and vote for us. Ignoring the need for reform. Again, you believe they need to reform. They don't. Some wanted to reopen and undo the compromises we reached. Yeah, I bet a lot of them did. This will be a mistake, because without reform, unity will be a risk. Yeah, okay. I don't believe you, dude. You've been an abused spouse for God knows how long, and I'm supposed to believe that right now you've changed your mind, and at some point you're going to say, I'm done. What's the point? And I'll leave it at this. What's the point at which you're willing to say, I'm done? What's the point? What's the point? If he sleeps with your mom, are you willing to say, I'm done? What's the point? If you have an orgy with your mom and grandmother, what's the point you're willing to say, I'm done? And if there is no point that you're willing to say, I'm done, if there's no point that all of you guys are willing to walk and start something new, at the very least, willing to say, no, you're not getting my vote, and you're not getting my support, at which point are you willing to walk? And if there is no point that you're willing to walk, then why are you bitching and complaining? Ultimately, you're just a constant, perpetual Democrat, a perpetual abused spouse that ultimately is not going to get anything accomplished because you're never willing to say, I'm done. You don't know where your power lies. That's what it boils down to. Hi, I'm okay with Mimiki and sellouts like Bernie keeping progressive issues in the spotlight, even if it's just for show or something, at least a third party. Yeah, I'm not okay with that. I'm sorry, I'm not okay with that. These guys are sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party, claiming that they're progressive, and they may be lefties. But I've asked, if the Unity Reform Commission comes back and tells them to go fuck themselves, then what? Are they still going to say full Democrat? If Paula Swearengin loses to Joe Manchin, is TYT still going to? Are they going to support Joe Manchin? I'm curious about this. Is ultimately these guys just Democrats, and regardless of what Democrats do, they're always going to support the party. And if so, Well, it's like at that point they can vote. You already know what they're going to do just based on, doesn't matter what Democrats do. They're always going to support the Democrat. At which point, if they look, and if they can say, well, look, at this point, I'm willing to walk, at least it's something I can judge them by. Meaning when Democrats hit that new low, and if they're still walking, then I know they're full of shit. Ultimately, right now, they just come across as Democrats. Doesn't matter what they do. And I have to be honest, somewhat pathetic. Zogby writing this plea out into the ether, begging for assistance. Oh, they're treating us poorly again. They're treating us poorly. I don't know why they treat us so poorly. Why? Why do they treat us poorly? They just keep slapping me. I don't know why they slap me in the face in this way. Slap me in front of my child. I'm embarrassed. Help. Please help. What can happen? 2018 Democratic pick up the House and the Senate, the majority of state governorships, but by 2020, with re-election of Trump, becomes Republican pickup for the U.S. Senate. Cool Blue 71. I don't know, man. My feeling was, well, and not even my feeling. I assumed a particular thing. At least I look at politics through a particular lens. And you can say it's my philosophical view of politics, whatever you want to call it, but it's a model that I use to judge and gauge politics. And that model has usually proves to be correct. People function based on leverage. How do you get a politician who really has no impetus to do anything other than somebody pushing him to do something? He may believe something, but ultimately it's either he believes something in which he's motivated to do something on his own, or he's being compelled to do something by people pushing him and forces acting upon him. Now you have a Democratic Party that has a workable point of view of markets being far more relevant than human beings. And in that relevant point of view, they have a status quo. I call that point of view status quo. They never believed that status quo needed to change. And because they never believed status quo needed to change, how do you push them to change it? The leverage that you had to push them to change it was the tension that was created by losing 1,100 seats, by losing the House, Senate, Supreme Court, and by losing to reality show hosts. Now, if they look at the polls, and the polls show that they can pick up the House, and they can even potentially pick up the Senate, where's your impetus? Each Democrat that was elected after Trump got across a particular message. You don't have to change status quo forever. The public is stupid enough to come running back to us because they're terrified of Donald Trump, meaning our failures and our fecklessness and the fact that we didn't represent their interests in the least doesn't matter. The fact that we didn't represent their interests is subordinate to how bad Donald Trump is. And because Donald Trump is bad, they'll come running back to us. And the moment that people come running back, you have affirmed their political acumen. It is a cynical political acumen, but it is a political acumen nonetheless. And it seems like that political acumen is correct. It seems like it's correct. So, James Zogby, if you want to get support and all this other stuff, I would say you need to stand up for yourself. I would say not getting pushed around, not getting embarrassed in this degree, not getting slapped in the face, not being cheated on, and not being this kind of abused, the Stockholm syndrome on the political spectrum, or the abused spouse of the political spectrum. Look, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on this. I guess my point is I told you so. And the difficulty that you have to work this hard to get them to make reforms that everybody in their right mind knows that probably should take place and more. I mean, ultimately, you're trying to get them to say, okay, we'll rig it 60% less. That's what you're trying to get them. The tepid reforms that you're trying to get. And they're still saying, we don't like this. We don't like this. James, you understand that if Tom Perez actually supported you, Tom Perez can implement these changes himself. And the fact that Tom Perez didn't implement these changes himself means Tom Perez wasn't serious about actually supporting you as lip service. Now, if you get through the rules committee, and this rules committee is skeptical of you, do you honestly believe that you're going to be able to get through the wider DNC? Particularly wider DNC, when that wider DNC understands that it's probably going to win the House, and it's probably going to win the Senate, and it's probably going to take the political calculus that if it puts up a ham sandwich to run against Donald Trump, that ham sandwich is going to win. Meaning the totality of government, potentially, without changing a thing. Where's your leverage? Where's your leverage? That's my question. So I find this to be fascinating. I don't like to say I told you so, even though I do like to say I told you so. Rock the bottom. Everybody's in their right mind. There's a problem. Psychopaths are not in their right mind in the way that you mean or we need. I think they are psychopaths, but I think psychopathy comes from the way our society is arranged, not necessarily these individuals. I mean, ultimately, we've allowed them to advantage themselves by acting like psychopaths. So it's like, well, hey, I've been able to advantage myself by acting like a psychopath. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to act like a psychopath. That gets me by. It gets me by. Underdog 47. If I had voted with ranked choice in the last election, Stein would have been my first choice. Agreed. And maybe Gary Johnson would have been my second. Barbara Marriage is scary that so many kids are parroting silly notions they heard on the interwebs. Rock the boat. Bonnie not only sit in their asses, but rob the damn till they're at. I have no idea what that one is saying. Rock the boat. Yeah, I don't know what that one brought. Domina Dracone. I don't like to say I told you so, but I do like being right. Domina. I love that. Domina. That's awesome. Hey man, where you at? I'm in Oslo, dude. Yeah, I'm in Oslo. We're in Oslo, Norway. It's 12:46 in the morning here. I saw this. I wasn't even going to do a second one. I saw this and I was like, oh God, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. There's a thing in me that rattles and shakes when I get to scream out, I told you so. I told you so. I get to use my Batman voice. I told you so. Say it in all sorts of voice. How can I say it in a British accent? Yeah, I can't say it in a British accent. Yeah, I wish I could say it in a British accent. Nice. Hope to see some pics from tourism. Yeah. I have one or two that I did from Oslo. I was talking to Norwegians, and they were like, America? It's like, yeah. And they saw us laughing. It's like, what do you think about Trump? It's like, God damn it. This conversation comes up like 4 or 5 times, or regardless of where we are, at a restaurant. Where are you from? America. Oh, Trump. Fuck Trump. Someone said, fuck Trump. Somebody else said, that guy's a fucking asshole. Somebody else said, we like Obama. And I was like, and he explained, he says, we liked Obama in the beginning. That's the way he said it. We had an impression of Obama, and that impression fell through. Tell them you worship Donald Trump. Oh man, that would be funny. He's like, what? I love that man. I love that man. Yeah. I gotta be honest. I can't even fake that. I can't even fake it. But Europeans hate his guts. They hate his guts. It's palatable. Like the moment that you say America, the first thing that comes out is they hate his guts. It's amazing. In a social democratic country, enjoy your holiday, Jamal. Bring back candy. I bring back liquor and shot glasses. So I collect shot glasses from all the countries I go to. And I try to find these little vials of liquor that are only made in the countries themselves. So like when I was in Greece, I would get Rocky or there's another one. There's two. It's like Rocky and there's another one. In Iceland, they had this Icelandic liquor. Brennilan, I think it's called. And here they have this Norwegian stuff that they put in a barrel of a boat in order to mature it. I can't think of the name of it. It's such a weird fucking thing. Uzo, that's a Garno. Yes, I have alcoholics for my subscribers. Good job, man. William Prentice. Hey, what the fuck, man? Jamal is one cool dude. He gives you the real food for thought. I'm glad to be a subscriber. Well, I'm glad you're a subscriber to William Prentice. Rock the Boat. Frankly, despite hating him from way back, I think it's damn funny in some ways that we have this Trump chaos going on. Don't throw things at me, please. He's humbling us. You know what's funny, Rock the Boat? I asked, one of the things I asked when they said they hate Trump, I said, what do you think that Trump is doing that Obama wasn't? I was curious about that. Like, it was an honest question. What do you think Trump is doing that Obama wasn't? And then I was like, Obama was still murdering civilians. Obama was still doing mass surveillance. Obama deported 3 million illegals, Hispanics. And they're like, well, Obama had a better personality. That's what it always comes down to. Obama had a better personality. So it's like, oh, your illusions were secure. Yes. Yes. Ew, Uzo. Greek wine sucks too. Rinse it tastes like Pinta. They love globalist neoliberal Hillary though. Bob Ramirez. Probably, yeah. But you must understand, this has nothing to do with policy. This has everything to do with, oh, they make me feel better. I like the image. I mean, Obama can sing. He croons. You know, he's affable. That's what it boils down to for them. It has nothing to do with the reality of his policies or anything else. It has everything to do with he puts on a good face. He puts on a good face. Not all Europeans hate Trump. I was in Hungary a few weeks ago when they were having surprising warmth towards him, but they hate him in France for sure. Corlesi, okay, fair enough. I don't mean all Europeans. Most things aren't all or not. I'm just saying the majority. That's all I mean. A strong majority. Your illusions are more secure. Exactly the difference between Hillary and Obama's. Yes, great. Hoodie Woman, Louisiana Pat. Open your mind. Of course it would work. I didn't see the last part. Tomosi Young. Nothing to do with politics. Everything to do with alcoholism. Pretty much. Pretty much. The level of I told you so high. The level of volume low. Oh, you can't hear it? What? My volume is on 100. At least it was on the last one. Let's see. No, dude, my volume's on 100. Obama was a prototype of a cancer from the UK known as Blair. Yes. Bernie's Obama is Corbyn's Blair. You know what's funny? Darren, yeah, good point. One of the guys, he even mentioned it. He said Obama was like Tony Blair. He said it outright. He said Obama was like Blair. Yeah, he said Obama was like Blair. And I said, yes. Absolutely. He was a Blairite. One of the neo-libs. One of the neo-libs. Alright, guys. It's almost 1 a.m. I am going to turn in. Guys, thank you for showing up. I am probably going to do one once we get into Madrid. So I'll probably see you guys tomorrow evenings. And yeah, Garnum, you're right. Blair was Bush's lapdog. Blair should be in a prison right now. He should be in a prison. He should be under prison. I mean, did you hear the behind the scenes on what took place with in regards to Tony Blair getting involved into the war? George Bush comes and says something like, "Are you with me, Tony?" Now, this is amazing. Like, he's asking you, "Are you with me, Tony?" He doesn't have squat. Yeah, Gordon Brown said they knew that, what's his name, didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Now, either Gordon Brown is lying, which I don't know why Gordon Brown would lie, or Tony Blair should be in prison. Tony Blair, being the lapdog of America, decided to take his country into a war that ended up killing 1 million Iraqis and essentially creating the precursors for ISIS, completely destabilizing that region of the globe. Tony Blair should be under a prison in the same way George Bush should be under a prison. An idea that Brits allow Tony Blair to get away with that shit, allowing Brits to be killed in the process of a legal war, is mind-blowing. It's bad enough that the President of the United States lied this country into a war and instituted torture in order to create a link between 9/11 and Saddam Hussein, a link that didn't goddamn exist. They waterboarded a guy hundreds of times. Now, if waterboarding was an effective tool of torture, why do you need to do it 100 times? Are you telling me that the 100th time is the charm? No, it didn't work. Ultimately, they couldn't establish that particular link. And in not being able to establish that particular link, it's still illegal. Torture is illegal. Torture was illegal when Bush did it. Torture is illegal now. No charges. Bush is not in prison. Tony Blair is not in prison. There's something fundamentally wrong with the idea that a president could take this country into a war that kills all those people. There is something fundamentally wrong when the prime minister of a lapdog country says, I am with you. I don't need any evidence. I am with you because we're your lapdog. And commit the British forces and the country itself into a war of aggression. Fuck evidence. Fuck the fact that many British soldiers were going to be killed in pursuit of sketchy ends. How does Britain let him get away with that? How does Britain let him get away with that? Blair should be in prison. Anthony Allen, no comment, just like the show. I love the irony of that. No comment, I just like the show. That is a comment. That is a comment, Anthony. But I appreciate it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's funny. Yo, Jamal, are you interviewing people on your trip? Hey, you, hi. So I tried, right? One of the guys I tried to interview, he asked where I was from. He brought up the whole Trump thing. And I said, hey, can I talk to you and interview about the Trump thing? He was like, I'm uncomfortable with that. I do have a few interviews coming up. Roxanne Meadows from the Venus Project, I will be interviewing her in February. I'm going down to Venus, Florida, and I'm going to have a conversation with Roxanne Meadows. I'm going to show off the Venus facilities and everything else, and she said she's open for an interview. So Roxanne Meadows of the Venus Project will be an interview in February. Holly Siegler is an interview coming up on the 25th, I believe. I need to check the calendar, but it's coming up on the 20th, 20-something. I think it's 25th. There's another interview that I have with somebody who's working in the pot industry. And this is going to be an interesting interview. She was telling me all of the things that she's been doing in regards to interacting with pot. And I was asking her, what impact is Jeff Sessions going to have on her business? Meaning what she does from the standpoint of pot. What impact is the change in the tenor of the Justice Department going to have on her industry? So I'm going to bring her on and have a conversation about that. That should be pretty damn interesting. So those are the 3 interviews I have coming up. I'm looking forward to all of those. The Venus Project is a pet thing of mine. I love that idea, and I really wish I would have met Jack Fresco before Jack Fresco died. I regret that like nobody's business. But yeah, we have interviews coming up. Gardno, part of journalism is simply harassing enough people until you go in to speak. That's not bad, dude. Maybe at the airport. Maybe at the airport. That might be the best place to try to do it. Keep trying, dude. Get at least one man on the street to interview. I really do want to get somebody. Hey, you, hi. I hear Israel has a good pot. I don't know. I've been to Israel. I didn't get a chance to try their pot. Gardno, tell Miss Thomas congratulations again. I will. She's unconscious right now, but I will. Oh, she's up. She says thank you. Airport is good. People are trapped. Right. People are just sitting in chairs and have like 2 hours for the airplane. It's like, hey, can I talk to you? I'm busy. Well, you have 2 hours to your flight, dude. You have 2 hours to your flight. Certainly, you can have a conversation with me. Yeah, pretty much, Gardno. Darren Levy. Blair is loved by the establishment. He, Cameron, and May cover each other's back as they don't want the successor locking them up for war crimes. Yeah, man, and I am really curious about whether or not if Corbyn gets in that seat, is Corbyn going to go for prosecution? God damn it, I hope he does. I hope he does. If Britain is going to have a certain amount of integrity and moral legitimacy, Blair needs to be put in prison. You can't have a prime minister dragging a country into a war of aggression. And it's a war of aggression that wasn't even started by his own fucking country. Like, it's bad enough that Bush invades a country on his own stupidity It's another thing for the stupid president with the low IQ to turn to the prime minister of the UK saying, hey, are you with me, Tony? I need you to commit your military and the people of your country into fighting a war of aggression for unknown ends, for reasons that aren't true, and for evidence that doesn't really exist. And Tony Blair looks at this and says, I'm in it, Georgie. I can't come up with a British accent. I'm in it, Georgie. Yeah, I go with that. I'm in it, Georgie. I'm in it, Georgie. I'm trying to think of the most ridiculous sounding accent that I can think of. I love British accents, so I don't even want to use a British accent for Tony Blair. I don't want to give him that credibility. It wasn't Bush that decided to invade Iraq. He approved and signed off, but the plans was decades in the making. What is the name of that thing? It was by people like Gingrich. I know what you're talking about, Cardinal. It planned to revitalize the military or something. I know what you're talking about. That neocon plan that they wanted to reshape the Middle East using American power. I am told that DPRK weed sucks. Who told you that, Gardone? You have spooks in the DPRK. You have spooks in North Korea. Hoodie Woman, Louisiana. How do you fight a war on terror? You don't fight a war on terror. You fight a war on terror by A, stop doing things that creates the terrorists. That's the first point. That's probably the biggest point. Can't come up with a brutish accent. No, I can't. I was looking for one. I couldn't come up with one. All right, I said I was gonna head out. My wife always jokes me when I'm like, all right, I'm gonna leave, and then 30 minutes later, I'm still going. All right, so I'm gonna end this. Anthony Allen, I appreciate your help, man. Thank you for the support, guys. You all have a good night. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. And one more time, by the way, I don't like saying this, but I do like being right. As somebody said, I told you so. I told you so. James Zogby. I'm going to let James Zogby take us away on this. At the Democratic Rules Committee, as they debate the Unity Reform Commission report, they keep calling it the Unity Committee, ignoring the need for reform. Some want to reopen and undo the compromises that we reached. This will be a mistake because without reform, unity will be at risk. James Zogby, thank you for your honesty. And I told you so.